Alright, so this video will start on the white ball, and then let me just tidy up the black ball layers. So I will select the top layer from the black ball, shift left click on the bottom layer, black ball, Ctrl G, G for go, to group them, and I'll just name this black ball. Okay, this background, actually I feel like the top part is a little bit too bright, so what I can do is I can actually press Ctrl T, T for train, and then I can stretch it up so the gradient is maybe not so strong as before. Previously, if you missed it, another method that we can do if we want to create a gradient on the background, you can also use a gradient tool. So I'm now using a gradient tool. Alternate. When using a brush, press alternate to color pick here. Now just switch. To press this switch button, you press X, so you switch to the background color, and then the bottom color, we'll just use the bottom color over here. So now when I use the gradient, G for gradient, and then when I'm using the blue to the darker part, top to the bottom, I'll just click and then I hold down shift and I'll release it here, and I'll create a gradient on the background. So this is another method for the background if you prefer this. Alright, so let me create another folder for the white ball, and I'm gonna use a little bit of quicker steps this time. Let's see if I can do that. So I'll create a eclipse of the ball. Okay, and then I'll just take it down. And then this one will be the white ball silhouette layer. And I'll just use my brush, color pick on one of these center colors. I don't want it to be pure white. Remember, I don't want something on the mid-tone. And I'll just use a brush to fully fill it up. Make sure you fill it up in full. I don't want to see any holes. Any holes meaning maybe there is a little bit that is unfilled over here. See? There's a little bit at the middle that is unfilled. Sometimes that happens. You need to fill it up to the full. Alright, 100% brush, fill up to the full. Right, next, create another new layer on top of it. Now I'll just add clipping mask on top, on top, on top. This time I'm gonna go from the bottom. So I'm gonna add the brown part over here. You see this brown part, and then there's this darker gray part. And I'm gonna add the brighter white color part, and I'm gonna add the bounce light, and then another shadow. So probably like 5 layers, 5 or 6 layers, right? So let me color pick the brown layer first, and then I'll just use a big brush. So see, I'm always using big brush, and I'm adding it like this, brown on the bottom. This is a brown. Next one, I create alternate left click, clipping mask, put it at the bottom, color pick, B with brush, alternate to color pick at the bottom. Just keep it constrained to this corner here. Sorry, this layer should not be at the bottom, should be on top of brown. And then I want you to use a relatively big brush, like 600, and then just keep it constrained to the corners here. So observe your ball, and then you know where to. So this is a darker shadow, darker shade bottom. Okay, next I create the next layer on top. I'm going a bit faster because now you understand the rationale. So I color pick over here. Use a big draw size. I'm using 1005, and I'll just tap a few times. Actually, I can use even bigger over here. Tap a few times, and I'm even gonna make it even bigger, like this. Then I'll just adjust it, shift it up, and this is like the lighter shade. This is like the lighter shade that applies on top. Lighter shade over here. And what I can do, I can just use a layer mask again. I create a layer mask, and then with a black layer mask, I can just reduce it on the corners and then on the bottom. Layer mask, when using layer mask, you don't need it to be 100%. You can reduce it, and on the corners, I would reduce it as well. My hands is on the brackets, these 2 brackets here. And I'm always changing between the draw size. So you see when I paint, my draw size keeps going bigger and smaller. It's very important to get a good draw size when we adjust our stuff. Okay, so I'm using a very nice draw size, and I managed to make it like a nice gradient on this ball on the top side. Everything is on clipping mask to the white ball silhouette. And now I'll add a blue bounce light. Blue bounce light color will reflect from the environment color. And then okay, the opacity has to go up again. Big draw size, go from the corners. Supply it downwards. Let it end at the middle part. Don't let it go down all the way. But you can apply a bit more. It's okay. And later we do a layer mask again. And now I will remove it again. So again, using layer mask, I'll bring down the opacity to reduce it. And then from the inside outwards, I will reduce the bounce light again. So I want some intensity, but I'll reduce the value of it and where it control the area. And now this is the fun part. So now I'll go back to the darker shade at the bottom. I'll use my burn tool and I'll burn the bottom part. Burn. So the bottom part becomes darker at the corners. Burn tool, add the darker shade, and then brown layer. Actually, this part here is probably okay. What I could do is I can also use a layer mask, and then I can reduce on some of these joining areas I'm looking at over here. It looks like I can lighten this a little bit, so I'm gonna do that. So I'll just layer mask, and then I lighten some areas that I don't want it to have so much effect. And actually, I'm gonna use another tool as well. So this is a sponge tool. And then because I realized the brown shade that I have, probably I can make it a little bit more saturated. So you can see this brown here, maybe just now I color pick it, it's a bit too dark. I want it to be a bit more saturated, a bit more vibrant. So I can use the sponge tool. Sponge tool on your keyboard should be K. Then use K for keys. So you can just switch it to the sponge tool. Then I'll just set it to maybe like 5% actually, and I can saturate the middle part of the brown here. So I want it to become a bit brighter. Actually, let me bring it up a bit more. Can you be a bit brighter? Let me go back and forth into the history. So you may not see the difference, but if I go back and forth into the history, you can see it. Okay, so it becomes a little bit brighter already. And actually, then we can just Ctrl U to adjust the hue to be a little bit more yellowish. So I'm just fine correcting the colors. Okay, maybe I shouldn't do that. I should do that for the last part. The bounce light, dodge with an O key, and then I'm noticing here how Mr. Sean painted before. The light here is a bit stronger, so I want to make the bounce light a little bit stronger on this part as well. So I'm just using dodge. So I can just dodge on the bounce layer, and it becomes a bit brighter there. Actually, a bit too much, so I'll use 5. Nice, I think I like that. Okay, next is the top layer, so I'll just put a small highlight here. And then so I'm gonna use the same highlight here that I'll make the draw size a little bit bigger, and then I'm planting that brown. So I'm using this same color. I'm using this, so you don't see the stroke that I planted, but actually it is like this. So I'm gonna change this to color dodge. So I'm using this light white color. And the reason is you notice everything I painted on this white ball, I never went to the corners. So look at the colors that I did. So from the start to the end, all the colors stay within this range. Or within this range. Alright, let me open up the bigger color wheel to see. So all the colors that I tell my students to paint with, we always paint within this range. Because there is never a color where it is just super bright or super white or super dark. Especially when you're still working on it. Maybe when the last part when you're finishing, you can start pushing the values all the way to the white color side. But all the values when we are still in the progress of painting, we should be painting here. And you can see from the start when we are painting this whiteboard, the value is more like grayish over here. And then the dark brown is more like over here. But we will never go, so even this highlight right now that I'm doing, it will only go until here. So we will never go to the brightest white color. And if you ever start with the brightest white color, you are just a newbie. You don't want to be a newbie. You want to be a pro. So if you start off with a color, don't just use white or don't just use white or black. Extreme colors. Start off somewhere in the middle. That gives you the power, the space to use the dodge and the burn, and then we can do our stuff on top of it. Like if you just use the extreme colors, there is no turning back. The supervisor come over, hey, can I make this highlight a little bit more brighter? Nope, I can't do that. I'm using extreme colors. I'm a newbie. So that is very bad. Okay, anyway, go back to this. My brush seems to be a little bit too soft. So actually, let me do that again. I want to use a sharper brush, so I'm using Shift plus to make it sharper. Or you can just choose a sharper brush over here, so it's sharper. Anyway, Shift left to become softer, Shift plus to become sharper. And then I'll just apply this brush stroke again. Yep, I want it to be a little bit sharper. So even though it looks a little bit rougher, I don't want it to be too soft. A little bit sharpness is fine. Let me just adjust it a little bit. I'm using my smudge, so you can see I'm smudging, adjusting it a little bit sometimes. And yep, I'm happy with that. So let me put it to clipping mask, and then I'll just name it as highlight. I'm on color dodge. The color value is the same one. I'm using a sharp brush, and then this is on another layer. Okay, now I'll just go back to my bottom silhouette layer, and then I'll use my dodge. Then I think I can just dodge on this location here. I can actually, that might be a bit too much. Okay, actually, I'll just do on another layer on top. So I'll just color pick on this layer. And I'll just use a softer brush this time. So I'm controlling a small area of highlight here. I'm looking at this. Sorry, let me annotate it properly. I'm looking at this small area of highlight, and I want to get that as well. So I'm putting it to maybe like a color dodge. Okay, I can call this extra highlight. And maybe this saturation can be a bit higher. Okay. Okay, so we are almost done. And then I'll just grab the shadow from the black ball layer previously done. I'll just add it back here. So I kind of have the same shadow going. Yep. So if I want to if I have more time, to adjust it. Now I can still make the highlight a bit longer, a bit nicer here. So I can actually go to my silhouette layer, and I can also apply a bit of burn to connect this right side a little bit more. Maybe I'll just stop the video here because the video length might be a little bit too long. Alright, and then you can do your finishing touches to make this ball even nicer. Not just on the right side, on the left side as well. I realize I can actually burn this part a bit more. And then, but remember not to overdo it. The ball has to be kept smooth. Your brush strokes has to be big on a lot of times on these layers, and then you have to keep making your brush bigger or smaller when making this painting. Right. So like the highlight itself. Okay, actually, let me go to the highlight itself. I'll dodge on the highlight itself. Yeah, almost done. Okay, so I'm happy with this. Yep, and I'll see you next time on next week's video. All right, bye.